The year 1914. A shot rings out in Sarajevo. It echoes across Europe, and soon, the world is engulfed in war. This is World War I, the Great War. It is a conflict so massive, so devastating, it will reshape the world forever. From 1914 to 1918, the great powers of Europe, along with their empires and allies, clashed in a brutal struggle. Millions of soldiers would perish, empires would crumble, a new world order would emerge from the ashes. This war, unlike any before, introduced horrifying new technologies. Machine guns mowed down soldiers by the thousands. Poison gas choked the life out of trenches. Tanks, a new invention, lumbered across battlefields. World War I was a global tragedy. The scars of this conflict would run deep, impacting the course of the 20th century and beyond. The Great War didn't erupt overnight. It festered for decades. A complex web of underlying causes set the stage for this global catastrophe. Militarism gripped Europe. Nations aggressively built up their armies and navies, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and fear. Each power believed it needed a powerful military to survive. Alliances entangled the nations of Europe. These agreements meant that an attack on one country could drag many others into war. What began as a regional conflict quickly escalated into a global one. Imperialism fueled rivalries. European powers competed fiercely for colonies, seeking raw materials, markets for their goods, and prestige on the world stage. This competition created tension and resentment. Nationalism, a powerful force, surged through Europe. People felt intense loyalty to their own nation and ethnicity. They sought independence, self-determination, and often dominance over others. These long-term factors created a powder keg. All that was needed was a spark to ignite it. June 28, 1914, Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, is abuzz with activity. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is visiting the city. But a storm is brewing. A Serbian nationalist group, the Black Hand, plots to assassinate the Archduke. They see him as a symbol of Austro-Hungarian oppression. They believe his death will spark a revolution. The Archduke's motorcade makes its way through the crowded streets. Suddenly, a young assassin, Gavrilo Princip, sees his chance. He fires 2 shots. The Archduke and his wife are fatally wounded. The world is stunned. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand throws Europe into chaos. Austria-Hungary blames Serbia and issues an ultimatum. The delicate balance of power begins to crumble. Within weeks, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. The alliance system kicks in. One by one, the great powers of Europe are drawn into the abyss. The Great War has begun. Section 4. Clash of Titans, Major Powers and Shifting Alliances. On one side stood the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. They were formidable opponents with vast armies and resources. Facing them were the Allied powers, Great Britain, France, and Russia, later joined by Italy and others. The Allies were determined to stop the Central Powers' aggression. Italy, initially allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, remained neutral at the outset. However, enticed by promises of territorial gains, Italy switched sides in 1915. This betrayal shocked the Central Powers and bolstered the Allied cause. The United States, initially neutral, watched the conflict with growing concern. American public opinion was divided, but events like the sinking of the Lusitania, a British passenger liner with Americans on board, fueled anti-German sentiment. In 1917, outraged by Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare and its attempts to forge an alliance with Mexico, the United States declared war on Germany. America's entry into the war would prove decisive. Section 5. New Horrors of War, Key Battles and Brutal Innovations. World War I introduced a new kind of warfare, trench warfare. On the Western Front, a vast network of trenches stretched for hundreds of miles. Soldiers on both sides faced a living hell. The Battle of the Marne in 1914 was a pivotal moment. German forces were stopped just outside Paris. The war on the Western Front settled into a bloody stalemate. Verdun, a name synonymous with horror, became a symbol of the war's brutality. In 1916, German and French forces clashed in a battle of attrition. Hundreds of thousands of men perished for mere yards of ground. The Battle of the Somme, also in 1916, was another costly Allied offensive. On the first day alone, British forces suffered over 60,000 casualties. The Somme became etched in British memory as a symbol of unimaginable sacrifice. New technologies made the war even more horrific. Machine guns, poison gas, tanks, and airplanes revolutionized warfare. These advancements increased the killing power exponentially, but they did little to break the deadlock on the Western Front. Section 6. America enters the fray, a turning point in the conflict. In 1917, the United States joined the war on the side of the Allies. American troops, fresh and eager, provided a much-needed morale boost. American industrial might also tip the balance. The United States supplied the Allies with vast quantities of weapons, ammunition, and other supplies. American financial aid helped to sustain the Allied war effort. Loans from American banks provided the Allies with the financial resources they needed to continue fighting. The entry of the United States into the war marked a turning point. The Central Powers, exhausted and facing overwhelming odds, struggled to hold on. Section 7. The War's End, a legacy of loss and uncertain peace. By 1918, the Central Powers were nearing collapse. Germany, racked by internal strife and facing defeat on multiple fronts, sued for peace. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed. The guns fell silent. The Great War was over. But the cost of victory was staggering. Millions lay dead. Empires were shattered. Europe was in ruins. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, officially ended the war, but it sowed the seeds for future conflict. Germany, blamed for the war, was forced to accept harsh terms. It lost territory, had its military severely restricted, and was saddled with crippling reparations payments. These punishments would breed resentment and instability in Germany. The world had changed forever. The Great War left an indelible mark on the 20th century. It was a conflict that few could have predicted and one that none who experienced it would ever forget.